Whatever you think about China, it is America's banker, and it sent 150 of its top diplomats to Washington this week to check up on its investments and talk about the way forward in the U.S.-Chinese relationship outside of this global economic crisis.
The actions taken by the United States and by China have made a very substantial contribution to our collective success so far in blunting the force of this economic recession and beginning to restore confidence.
But our next guest isn't so confident anything was accomplished. In fact, he's called these meetings one big debutante ball. Scott Paul is the executive director of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Welcome to the program. You know, the White House was billing this as the first strategic and economic dialogue between these two countries. But as we all know, a strategic and economic dialogue began under the Bush administration with Secretary Paulson. And in fact, we've been talking to the Chinese now for 8 administrations. You think we've started over, essentially?
I think we have. I think that unfortunately this was more about handshakes and getting to know you than achieving real results. And I think why this matters to the American people so much, as you correctly point out, China is America's banker, but a lot of the job situation we're having right now is the direct result of our imbalanced trade relationship with China. We've been bleeding manufacturing jobs for almost a decade. And there's nothing that indicates to me over the last week that that's going to change anytime soon. And that's a big concern to workers and businesses around the country.
I wanted to ask you, a couple of advocates for American manufacturing workers this week told me, frankly, that they thought the American worker was not on the agenda at this meeting. The reason why we point out that China is America's banker, because they said much of this time behind closed doors was spent reassuring the Chinese that we will get our fiscal house in order eventually and that their investments will be in good shape. Where was the American worker on the agenda?
I think, unfortunately, been shoved aside or shoved down the road. And I think that's unfortunate because President Obama, before he took office, said that we'd have a different kind of relationship with China, that we'd try to engage them more on economic issues and hold them to the commitments that they made when they joined the World Trade Organization and gained greater access to the market about 8 years ago. But on issues like China's currency rate, which gives its products an artificial advantage coming in the United States, on China's industrial subsidies that are causing jobs to leave for China, and a myriad of other complaints that we have about trade with China have been left off the table, and I think that we need to make progress. Otherwise, we're going to face the prospects of a jobless recovery.
There are a few issues that the average American has to think about with respect to China. One is that it will be the fastest growing economy in the world, and there'll be lots of consumers there, and maybe we can make some money off of that as investors or as people who offer goods and services. Number two, as you indicate, they are our banker. They buy much of our new debt, and as a result, you don't have a one-on-one relationship with your banker. We all know that. And number three, it is cheaper to manufacture things in China than it is to manufacture things in the United States. If all of those things you just talked about were addressed by China, the currency, the subsidies to bring industry over there, would they not still be cheaper than making goods in the United States?
For some things they may be, Ali, but for a lot of things they won't be.
This becomes a political matter, not just an economic matter, when you look at some of these numbers and know that, you know, with so many people losing their jobs, this starts to matter to them. 2.3 million jobs lost to outsourced to China, according to your firm. Also, 40,000 factories have been closed over the past 6 or 7 years. And I wanted to just bring up what Secretary Geithner and then also the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal before this meeting. You know, they really found this important. They talked about North Korea. They talked about more than just economics, so that's why they're kind of billing this as a new kind of dialogue. But they say both nations must avoid the temptation to close off our respective markets to trade and investment. Both must work hard to create new opportunities for our workers and our firms to compete equally, so the people of each country see the benefits from the rapidly expanding U.S.-China economic relationship. Are both countries, workers in both countries, being served well by the relationship as it is right now? Because, you know, I'll tell you, hundreds of millions of people in China have lost their job because of a bubble burst here in the United States.
I think the least we can do right now, Christine, is to hold China to the standards that it agreed to when it entered the World Trade Organization, to stop manipulating its currency, to open its market to American goods, to end its industrial subsidies. Then we can talk about a balanced relationship.
All right, Scott Paul, we have to leave it there. The Executive Director for the Alliance for American Manufacturing, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.